environment and the frustration. So addressing the reading needs of kids is very important. Teaching them to read regardless of the circumstances that they come from, whether they come from a home where a parent has read to them from birth to the time they start school or has not, makes a big difference. So this is all about addressing the individual needs of people rather than trying to do it on a global basis, I think.
I know we talk about the inability to read for some of the children. If this is happening to them when they're in high school, shouldn't this have been caught?
Should have been, right. If you start with preschool programs and you follow a child and try to teach them at the pace at which they can learn, because, but so often, you get to a grade level and you either advance the child or you don't advance the child based on the grade level. All kids don't learn at the same pace, so you gotta, and that's part of the reason we've put so much emphasis on decreasing the size of classes, right? Yes, it's easier to teach 15 kids at their own individual pace than it is to teach 40 kids at their own individual pace, right? Because there are just so many hours in a class, or so many minutes in a class period. So all of these things work together, and you're right, you've got to get at this very early in the process and follow it throughout the process.
Your family, what impact or how vital is it to have that support from your wife and your children?
Oh, it's very important in the political arena, but it was also important growing up. My mother was very supportive of education and reading, and while I grew up essentially in a single-parent home because my father and mother separated and divorced when I was a little kid, and me and my brothers grew up in the household with my mother. But it was very important that she emphasized reading and education, and was actively involved in the PTA at the school, and it was just that was something that was as important as going to church, I guess. Every Sunday we had to be in church, but every day we had to be in school, right? That was important from the very beginning, and then that's stayed with me throughout my adult life. And when I got elected to Congress, my mother continues to be supportive, my wife is supportive, and my children, although they are scattered out all across the country at this point, one in California, one in New York, I know that they are there if I need them, and I'm in regular contact with them, if not daily, it's certainly every week I'm in contact with them.
Your boys, they graduated from Yale?
Undergraduate school at Yale, yeah, and but West Charlotte High School.
Correct.
Yeah. Don't forget that.
West Charlotte.
Got to give West Charlotte that dap, right?
Right, that's great. So that shows that West Charlotte can produce.
Absolutely, and West Charlotte's gone through a number of changes. West Charlotte was the school of choice in our community for a number of years, and then it we've kind of gone away from that. It's affected the academics, it's affected the athletics, it's affected the music, it's affected the art. You have to have a committed cadre and community supporting a school for it to continue to be a vibrant community. And for a while, people all across the city wanted to go to West Charlotte. It was a magnet school. It had a good academic program. It was rigorous. And when they went away somewhat from the magnet school, it stopped attracting a diverse population that you need to challenge each other, you know. But West Charlotte's a great school. It has a great history, and I'm blessed that West Charlotte is in my congressional district. I'm blessed that Dudley High School in Greensboro is in my congressional district. Carver High School in Winston-Salem is in my congressional district. So a lot of these historically black high schools and colleges in my congressional district, and they produce just outstanding students, and I think will prosper and continue to prosper.
For some of my viewing audience, what would be considered the 12th district?
Well, now I have parts of 6 counties: Mecklenburg, Charlotte, in Mecklenburg County, a little bit of Cabarrus County, Concord, and Kannapolis, some of Rowan County, Salisbury, and that area, some of Davidson County, which is where Lexington and Thomasville are. Some of Forsyth County, which is where Winston-Salem is, and some of Guilford County, which is where Greensboro is. So those 6 counties, parts of those 6 counties, I don't have all of any of those counties, but I have what I consider the best parts of all of them. So I try to represent all of them well. And it's a diverse congressional district because I was meeting with somebody this morning. They were talking about, well, the Charlotte economy has not done bad in this economic downturn compared to other cities, they said. And I said, yeah, well, I can experience that in my own congressional district because once you leave Charlotte, you go to Concord and Kannapolis and Rowan, Salisbury and Lexington. They've been hit hard by the economic downturn. Winston-Salem has done reasonably well. Greensboro has not done as well as Winston-Salem and Charlotte, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm dealing with different challenges of the people within my own congressional district, just as the nation is dealing with different challenges between states, and every member of Congress has that challenge of dealing with diversity in their congressional district, and you got to meet the needs of all the people.
Back in 1900, Congressman George White.
Yeah, I'm familiar with him.
He was, back in 1900, I guess the first African American to be in the House of Representatives.
No, actually he was the last.
Prior to yourself.
He was the last in that century to, and you know, there were a number of African Americans in Congress from the South before George H. White. And then, you know, you had poll taxes and literacy tests and things that eliminated the African American vote in the South. And so George H. White was actually the last one that was still standing, and he delivered on the floor of the House in 1898 or 1899 this famous speech where he said, you know, perhaps this will be the temporary farewell of the Negro to Congress. But Phoenix-like, we will rise up again and come again one day. And it took 97 years after that for it to happen in North Carolina, but it happened quicker than that in some other states. So.
And that was when yourself, back in 1992, yourself
and Eva Clayton.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Y'all became the next 2 individuals.
Right.
How does that make you feel?
Well, you know, it makes me feel sad first because it took so long, because I know there were a lot of very, very, very extremely well qualified African Americans who could have served in Congress and served well in that 97, 98 year period where no African Americans were elected from North Carolina. And it makes me feel proud that we finally turned that corner.
Yes, sir.
Right? And that the people thought enough of me and Eva Clayton to send us to be the next representatives after George H. White. So there's a touch of sadness, and then there's a touch of hope and pride about it. So you know, that's part of our history, and we just have to keep moving and making a new history as we go forward.
Why is it so important that we get out and vote?
Well, I think politics in one way or another touches all of our lives, all aspects of our lives, and if we don't vote, then we renege on the opportunity or pass up the opportunity that we have to influence who's going to speak for us and who's going to represent us in the process. You know, decisions in a room quite often are colored by who's sitting in the room making the decisions. You know, if you don't have a representative in the room, you can be left out, and you can get some decisions that are really adverse to you. So it's important to have a representative or representatives in the room. Mm-hmm. And it's important to select those representatives, and that's what the vote represents, the ability to influence who will represent you in the room.
There was an incident that happened in Arizona with Congresswoman Gifford. How did that impact your thinking as far as the position of being in a political position and like possible security and all that? How did that really affect you?
Well, you know, the question I get asked more than anything else is, where is your security? Correct. I mean, where is your driver? Where is your limousine? People ask me. And I say, I don't have a limousine, I don't have a driver, and I don't have security. I mean, the House of Representatives consists of representatives of the people. We're closer to the people than any other federal elected officials are. The Senate runs every 6 years. They run statewide. We run in districts, and while I represent 650 to 700,000 people, that's a lot closer to the people than representing 13 times 700,000 people, which is what a statewide representative in North Carolina, a Senate representative, would do. So we're the closest to the people. It does make you swallow hard when somebody gets shot in a public setting like that. We have taken some security precautions, but I don't want to be so cautious about my security that it shields me from the people that I represent. And so I've tried to go on with life business as usual. I walk in parades. I ride in convertible automobiles in parades. I mean, you know, sometimes people scream nasty things at me, and I worry about what they could do. But if you let that consume you, then you ignore the fact that that's probably less than 1/2 of 1/10 of 1% of the people who are thinking about such things. And you know, you live your life hoping that you can represent effectively the rest of the people. Correct. And neutralize the people who wish you harm, right?
Yes,
so
sir.
That's all you can do.
Congressman Watt, we're running out of time. I really appreciate you coming on the show. You know, you've done a great job representing the 12th District, and I wish you the best of luck in whatever you do in your future.
Well, thank you so much for inviting us to be here, and look forward to doing it again sometime.
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Congressman Watt's 11th term.
11th term, 12th district. Right.
Yes,
okay.
sir. Thank you for watching the show. You be encouraged. Thank you.